The lunch rush at Maple Street Grill in Dallas, Texas had slowed to a quiet hum by the time. Claire Henderson wiped down the last table, in her section, and tucked the damp cloth into her apron. It was a Thursday in October, the kind of afternoon where the sun came through the diner, windows at a low angle, and lit up every scratch on every tabletop and made the whole place look like something out of an old photograph. Claire had worked here for 19 months. She knew the scratches by heart. She was 29 years old. She had cheekbones that people noticed and dark brown eyes that, even on the worst days, still looked like they were searching for something worth finding. She wore her dark hair in a low ponytail that she redid every 3 hours because the humidity in Dallas was not interested in cooperating with anyone. Her uniform was a white button-down shirt, black trousers, and a short black apron. She tied twice around her waist because it was a size too large. She had lost weight in the last 2 years. Not on purpose. Grief had a way of carving a person down to their essentials. 2 years, 1 month, and 11 days ago, her husband James had been killed on the I-35 interchange on his way home from his evening shift at the auto parts warehouse where he'd worked since they moved to Dallas from Abilene. He was 31. He had been wearing the blue jacket she'd bought him for his birthday. He had called her 40 minutes before to say he'd pick up milk on the way. He never made it to the store. A driver had crossed the center line at 72 miles per hour, and that was the end of the phone calls. The birthday jackets, the milk, and the life Claire had built herself around. Their daughter Grace was 3 when it happened. She was 5 now, small for her age, with James's dark eyes and a laugh that still sometimes stopped. Claire cold in the middle of whatever she was doing because it sounded so much like him. Claire kept going because Grace needed her to keep going. That was the whole equation. It was not complicated. It was just heavy. She was refilling the salt shakers at the counter when the man walked in. He was old, somewhere in his late 60s, with a wide-set face and white hair cut very short and hands that looked like they had spent 50 years working with them. He wore a plain gray button-down shirt, khaki trousers, and boots that were clean but well-worn. He did not look at the menu board. He did not look around the diner the way new customers usually did. He simply chose the table at the far end of Claire's section, the corner, one near the window, and sat down, with the particular stillness of a man who had already done everything he came to do, except the hardest part. Claire walked over with a smile she had practiced long enough that it arrived on its face naturally, without effort, which was its own kind of achievement under the circumstances. "Afternoon? Can I get you started with something to drink?" He looked up at her. His eyes were light blue, and they held something in them that she couldn't quite name. Not sadness exactly. Something older than sadness. Something that had been sitting with a person long enough to settle, all the way to the bottom. "Coffee," he said. "Black. Anything to eat?" He paused. "Whatever the soup is. Beef and vegetable today. It's good. Made fresh this morning." He nodded once and looked back out the window. She brought him his coffee and his soup and checked on him 10 minutes later, and he shook his head without looking up. She left him to it. She had learned over 19 months that some customers came to eat and some customers came to sit inside a place that had other human beings in it without actually having to talk to any of them. And that second kind of customer deserved to be left alone with whatever they were carrying. She had 4 other tables that afternoon. A pair of women sharing a salad and a long conversation. A young father with a toddler who needed 3 napkins and a straw. 2 college boys with laptops. And the particular brand of distracted hunger that only college boys had. She moved between them all. Refilling, smiling, writing things down, carrying things back and forth. The ordinary choreography of the job she had taken because it paid in cash at the end of every shift, and she could not afford to wait 2 weeks for a paycheck. When the old man finally pushed his bowl to the side and sat back, Claire brought the check in its small black folder and set it on the table with a smile. No rush at all. He looked at her then, directly and for longer than was comfortable, and she held his gaze because she had learned that too, that flinching away from difficult things did not make them smaller. Then he looked back down at the table and reached into his shirt pocket and removed something she could not see clearly before placing it under the soup bowl. He stood, He took out his wallet and placed exact bills in the folder, and she could see from the angle that it was correct. Payment with nothing extra. He buttoned the top button of his shirt slowly, the way a man braces himself for cold air even though there was no cold air. Then he walked to the door. He stopped just before it. He turned back once, found her across the room, and held her eyes for just a moment. His expression was something she could not read. Then he pushed the door open and was gone. Claire cleared his table. She picked up the soup bowl and set it on her tray, and that was when she saw it. A folded piece of paper, thick and creased like it had been folded and unfolded many times, and beneath the paper, something small and metal that caught the afternoon light, a key. She picked up the note with fingers that were already not quite steady, though she couldn't have said why. She stood at the corner table by the window where he had been sitting, and she read it. The handwriting was slow and careful, the way handwriting looks when someone is choosing every word before they commit it to the page. My name is Walter Brooks. My son Aaron is serving 8 years at the Caulfield Unit for vehicular manslaughter while intoxicated. The man he killed on October 4th, 2 years ago, on the I-35 interchange. His name was James Henderson. I know that was your husband because I have spent 14 months trying to find you. I am not asking for forgiveness. I do not believe I have the right to ask for that. I am writing this down because I am 68 years old and I have a bad heart, and my doctor told me in August that I have somewhere between 1 and 3 years, and I have decided I cannot leave this earth without trying to give back something of what my son took from you. I owned Brooks Hardware on Cedar Avenue for 31 years. I sold it in September. I have no other family. Aaron is all I have, and he knows what he did, and it has destroyed him from the inside out, which is not your concern. But I am telling you because I want you to know he is not the same man who got in that car. The key is to a house at 2214 Birchwood Lane in Garland. It is a 3-bedroom house. It is paid off. The deed has been transferred to your name. My attorney filed it last week. His card is folded inside this letter. There is also a savings account set up in trust for your daughter, whose name is Grace. There is enough in it for her college and more. You do not need to do anything to access it except call the number on the card. I am not trying to buy your forgiveness or replace what cannot be replaced. I know money does not bring a man back. I know a house is not a father for your little girl, but I have been sitting with this weight for 2 years, and it is the only thing I have left that is worth anything, and I want it to go to you. I watched you tonight from the moment I walked in. You smiled at everyone in this room. You have been carrying something that would have put most people on the ground, and you are still standing up and smiling. My son does not deserve that kind of strength existing in the world because of what he did. But your daughter does, and so do you. I will not contact you again. Whatever you decide to do with the house and the account is entirely your choice. If you want nothing to do with it, I understand that completely. But I had to try. I had to try to do something with whatever time I have left that was worth doing. Walter Brooks. Claire stood at that table for a very long time. The college boys closed their laptops and left. The 2 women finished their salad. The young father got the toddler's jacket on through considerable negotiation. The diner shifted into the slow quiet of mid-afternoon, and Claire stood at the corner table by the window, with a letter in one hand and a house key in the other, and she cried in a way she had not cried since the morning of October 5th when the police officer had stood at her door with his hat in his hands. She cried because she was tired. She cried because Grace had never once gotten to sit in her father's lap and fall asleep there, which was a thing that 5-year-olds were supposed to be able to do. She cried because, for 2 years, she had carried the image of a faceless, reckless person who had ended her life as she knew it, and now that person had a father named Walter who had a bad heart and had spent 14 months looking for her because he could not leave the world without trying to make something right. She cried because the world was so much more complicated than anger allowed it to be, and she had been living inside anger for 2 years because it was the only shelter she had found that kept the other feelings out, and now it had a crack in it big enough to let everything through. She cried, and then she stopped, and then she folded the letter back along its worn creases and put it in her apron pocket, next to the key. That evening she sat on The floor of Grace's room after. Her daughter fell asleep and she watched her breathe for a long time. She thought about the house on Birchwood Lane that she had never seen. She thought about a man named Walter sitting somewhere tonight not knowing what she would do. She thought about James, who had been generous to a fault, who had once helped a stranger change a tire in the rain for 45 minutes without being asked. She knew what James would have said. She knew it the way she knew his voice, still after 2 years. Present and clear in her chest even if she could no longer hear it out loud. She picked up her phone. She found the attorney's card. She sat with it for a moment. Then she opened her notes app and began to type out the words she would say when she called. Not to accept the house, not yet. She was not ready for that yet. But to ask the attorney to pass one message to Walter Brooks. 3 sentences. I read your letter. I am not ready to forgive, but I am willing to try. She hit send on the message to herself so she would not forget the words. And she sat back against Grace's bed in the quiet dark. And she breathed. And for the first time in 2 years, 1 month and 11 days, the silence in the room did not feel entirely like loss. It felt very faintly like the first morning of something she did not yet have a name for. And that was enough. That was for tonight exactly enough.